Greetings to all of you. Welcome to another episode of Eternal Bliss Reading Circle. And today we are entering Scene 3 of Act 1 from the play The Merchant of Venice. Now, in Act 1, Scene 1, we found the introduction of Antony, who is referred as the Merchant of Venice. Now, in Act 1, Scene 1, we found Antonio as a noble businessman. His profits depended on the business transacted by means of his ships. So all the money that he earned depended on the export and import of his rich merchandise. And he, being a rich man, he helped people with money if anybody ever needed his help, but it was only with the intention of helping his friends or the people in need. But whenever he lended money to anybody, he never charged interest out of it. But in scene 3 of Act 1, we find the introduction of Shylock. Now, regarding Shylock, I want to say certain things before going through the text. Shylock is one of the important characters of the play. He is the villain, and with Shylock, the excitement in the play builds up. Like whenever there is entry of Shylock in the play, throughout the text, you will see that with the introduction of Shylock in the scene, the atmosphere totally changes. Like if everything is going on in a very placid way, with the introduction of Shylock, there is always a commotion and movement. We can always expect excitement, interest, and twists and turns with the introduction of Shylock in any scene of the play. So let us get introduced to one of the most important character of the play, that is Shylock. So here in The Merchant of Venice, Shylock is playing the shrewd villain. As I gave you some characteristics of Antonio in the beginning of today's class, that Antonio was a noble businessman and he derived money, he derived profit from the business he carried on by means of his ships, by selling the rich merchandise. But here in The Merchant of Venice, we get another merchant named Shylock. He is also a businessman, but his business depended on the money he lended. Meaning, Shylock lended money to the needy people, and in return of the money that he lended, he charged high interest. So here you can see that Shylock's business is of a different kind. He uses the helplessness of people, and he takes advantage of their helpless situations and makes money by providing them money in time of need. So Shylock's business depends on the high interest he charges in return of the money he lent to people in their need. So regarding the ideals of Antonio and Shylock, if you compare these two characters, we find Antonio as a kind and generous man who is always open-minded, who is always open-armed to help people in time of their need by lending them money. But he never charged interest for doing so. Whereas Shylock too lends money to people in their need, but in return of the money that he lends, he charges high interest, and thus he grows rich by using the helplessness of the needy people. So the ideals of Antonio and Shylock never matches. Antonio stands for helpfulness. Antonio stands for kindness and generosity, whereas Shylock is a merchant known for his meanness and shrewdness. Again, Antonio is a Christian. He believed in the Christian faith and the principles which are dictated by the Bible as per the Christian religion. Whereas Shylock is a Jew. Now, in those days, like in Elizabethan time, the Jews were condemned for their religious faith. It was always viewed in bitter eyes if a person was a Jew. So, Jew never had the prestige and reputation of that of a Christian. While a Christian person is respected in eyes of people because Christianity was predominant at that time. But Jews were condemned and hated for their faith in their Jewish religion. So, these are the facts that the differences that existed between Shylock and Antonio made Shylock bitter about Antonio. Shylock hates Antonio for Antonio helps people in time of need but without charging any interest. Whereas Shylock earned a bad reputation by charging high interest in return of the money he provided to people, and so he is a usurer and condemned by people. So Shylock hates Antonio for this fact that Antonio brings down his business. Shylock is losing his reputation and name. Again, many people are not likely to take help from Shylock because they knew that if they take money from Antonio, they do not have to charge any interest. Whereas if they took money from Shylock, they would have to pay high interest. So Shylock was of opinion that his business was going down because of the kindness and generosity of Antonio. Again, on the other hand, we saw that Antonio is a Christian and he is reputed and respected by people for his religious faith. Whereas Shylock, being a Jew, as a general norm, was hated and condemned by people. So these are two major facts for which Shylock hates Antonio. Again, through their conversation in this scene, you will see that in previous events, Antonio had used bad language, foul language against Shylock. And that is why Shylock holds the grudge for being condemned by Antonio in public. And Shylock has this bitterness in his mind. Now, in the end of Act 1, Scene 1, we found that as Antonio was not able to give money to Bassanio, for he did not have cash in hand, so Antonio suggested Bassanio to go to any money lender for help, and he also advised Bassanio to use his name as guarantor, and so that Bassanio can easily get monetary help from a money lender. So as per their planning, so here in Act 3, Scene 1, we find that Bassanio and Antonio, they come to the place of Shylock for monetary help. So the scene is set in Venice, a public place. So already I have discussed in my earlier episode that Venice is the center for trade. So whenever any business transaction will be carried out, whenever you will find a scene in the Merchant of Venice, which is concerned regarding trade and business transaction, it will generally mean Venice. So Venice denotes the center for trade. The scene is set in a public place in Venice, and we find Bassanio and Shylock entering the scene. Now, Shylock says 3,000 ducats well. So we know that Bassanio needed 3,000 ducats in order to present himself as a suitor for Portia. And so Bassanio has asked for 3,000 ducats. Ducats is the currency of Venice. And now Shylock says that that is the amount which Bassanio has wanted. Bassanio says, sir, for 3 months. So he has come to take 3,000 ducats, but only for 3 months. Bassanio says, for the which, as I told you, Antonio shall be bound. So as per their proposition, Antonio is bounded for the money that Bassanio is taking for 3 months. Then Shylock says, Antonio shall become bound. Well, so for Shylock, like it is like an invitation. So Shylock has lot of bitterness and grudge for Antonio. And Antonio is financially so strong, and also he's such an established businessman. Shylock can never beat him in business. Neither can Shylock cause any harm to Antonio because the position that he holds for being financially so strong and a successful businessman. But when Antonio's friend Bassanio asks for 3,000 ducats, with Antonio being bound for it, Shylock understands that yes, like this is the opportunity that he needed. He wanted to see Antonio helpless in front of his eyes, and now his rival enemy is ready to be bound for the money that Shylock lends. So it is obviously a welcome situation for Shylock. Bassanio says, may you steed me, will you pleasure me? So meaning Bassanio is asking, will you help me? Steed meaning help. Shall I know your answer? Shylock says, 3,000 ducats for 3 months, and Antonio bound. So these are the things that actually Shylock was waiting for. Bassanio says, your answer to that? Shylock says, Antonio is a good man. So here you see that there is a double meaning to it. Obviously, we know that Antonio is a good man from the character traits that we got about him in Act 1, Scene 1. But when Shylock says that Antonio is a good man, here Shylock speaks from his own perspective, that it is a good catch for Shylock to have Antonio in his grip. Bassanio says, have you heard any imputation to the contrary? That do you have any question regarding that Antonio is a good man? Shylock says, oh no, my meaning in saying he is a good man to have you understand that he is sufficient. Now Shylock is actually changing his words. Previously he said that Antonio is a good man, meaning that Antonio is a catch for him. Now he is changing the meaning, telling that actually Antonio is a good man because he is sufficient. He has enough wealth to run his own business. He does not require anybody's help. Yet his means are in supposition. But now he is in need of money, as because his argosies, meaning big ships, are on trade to Tripolis, to Rialto, to Mexico, and to England. So his ships are carrying on business in 4 different areas, in 4 different countries, and 4 remote places. So these ships are out of Antonio's hand now. Antonio does not have any cash in hand, as because all the money is invested in the ships and other ventures he had squandered abroad. So not only his ships are carrying on business at Tripolis, Rialto, Mexico, and England, but his ships are on other places too. But again, Shylock here is very optimistic about this fact that though Antonio feels safe that his money is invested in his ships, but Shylock could foresee that there is no certainty that Antonio can get return of the investment that he has done on his ships. So Shylock is telling that ships are boats, meaning ships are but made of wood. So there is high probability that the ships might sink. Sailors but men, meaning sailors are men, so sailors are mortal. So might be that the sailors meet with some dangerous situation like storm, and it might happen that these sailors die because of the misfortune. There be land rats and water rats. So rats refer to the thieves and robbers which are on the ship, like the pirates of the ship, water thieves and land thieves. So there is also probability that the rich merchandise of Antonio can get robbed by the pirates. And then there is the peril of water. Peril of water meaning it is very likely to have storms in the sea. The ship might get sunk in water because of the storm, and it might happen that the ships get stuck on rock and sink. So here all the words that Shylock is speaking about Antonio's ships are the probable dangers that Antonio's ships can meet with. So you see that Shylock, being a mean businessman, he's a mean and shrewd man. He derives money by lending money to people in need and uses their helplessness to earn money. Like all his thinking are mean. And so when he talks about Antonio's ships, there also we find the shrewdness in him, the cruel person that he is. Like Shylock can never think of any good thing. Like all the bad things appeal to him. In contrary to the character of Antonio that we found. Antonio is kind and generous. Antonio is ready to help people. Like we saw that Antonio is risking his own life for his friend Bassanio. He does not have money in his hand. Still, he comes forward to help his best friend Bassanio to get money by risking his own life, giving his own name, being bound for the money that they are going to take from Shylock. Again, we also saw that Antonio himself does not believe in love, the romantic love between a man and a woman. Like for Antonio, it is quite nonsensical. Like for himself, he will never think of having a romantic relationship with any girl. But though this romantic love goes against his own values, his own likings, still for his best friend, he has come so forward to help him, and also being so kind and generous to give his own name as being bound for the 3,000 ducats that they are going to take from Shylock. Bassanio says, "Be assured you may." So they have come to take 3,000 ducats only for 3 months, and now Bassanio is convincing Shylock that he should remain assured that Shylock's money would be returned on time. Then Shylock says, I will be assured I may, and that I may be assured. That is, first is telling I will be assured, meaning definitely he should be assured. But again, he's twisting the word and telling I may be assured, meaning it depends on the will of Shylock whether he accepts this proposition or not. Means it is up to Shylock whether he would lend the money or not, whether he would consider Antonio's name as assurance or not. So he's keeping his higher hand. He might not provide the money, and it totally depends on his will whether he should give them the money or not. Bassanio says, if it please you to dine with us. So here you see Bassanio also invites Shylock for a dinner, and again we know that Bassanio is a spendthrift and he leads a very luxurious life. So here he has come to come to lend money from Shylock. Still he is offering dinner to Shylock. And in reply to that, Shylock says, yes, to smell pork. So you see, according to the Jewish principles, Jewish people, they do not eat pork. Whereas Christian people, they do not have any restriction in having pork. Now these are religious belief. It is not anything about eating the flesh of a pork. Rather, whether a person should have pork or not totally depends on the religious belief. So as because the Jewish people, they do not have pork, do not eat pork. So here Shylock is condemning the Christians, telling that having here Shylock means that having dinner with the Christians mean eating pork with the Christians. Then by this, Shylock actually rejects this idea of having dinner with them.